Hey, everybody, welcome to another episode of 50 Conversations with 50 Strangers. I know nothing about this woman that I'm about to talk with, except for the fact that she was kind enough and really generous enough of her in spirit to meet me in the green room and to relax me. I had a conversation this morning in one of these conversations, which I'm not going to publish, not because I worry about what you think of me, because I actually wanted to do it so you could see me in not a good moment, because people sometimes have a preconceived notion that I'm more than I am. I don't want to be more than I am. But the conversation still resides in me, not because the person that I had a conversation with did anything wrong or something happened, but because I just saw how far I still have to go in order to be able to hold space for people who are confrontational or who are just trying to sell products or just trying to do things. And I just want to come to you and thank you for Tami in particular. Thank you for calming me in this moment and starting our conversation so that I could get let go of all of that. I can't tell you how much that means to me. And for those of you who are out there, I won't publish the show that we did earlier. I don't even want to tell you. I won't even say who we did it with. Just suffice it to know that all of us mess up sometimes, and I clearly messed up. So with that, without trying to just stating it as the fact that it was, not creating it as the reality that I am, I want to take this moment and enter a new conversation. We have the honor of this beautiful person who helped calm me this morning. And I want to introduce her to you and to me. Tami Belt, welcome to 50 Conversations.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here.
That is so kind of you. You know, normally if I do a podcast, right, and I have a podcast called the Mosaic Podcast, and I'll research people, I'll find out about them, I'll go on their websites, I'll do it. For this one, I don't like to know anything about people because I like to walk into this magic room of this Zoom room and see what happens when two people who don't know each other sit together. How uncomfortable we feel, what actually happens. So, will you take a moment and just tell me and everybody else listening who you are and what's important to you?
Well, as you said, I'm Tami Belt. I'm a second generation Las Vegas native. Um, I'm a storyteller. I've been a storyteller since I was a child. My imagination just has been off the charts. Whenever I didn't like where I was, I imagined where I wanted to be, and I would create that. So telling stories has always been, I don't know if I'd call it an escape, but in a way it was an escape, but well, there you go. And I love stories.
Where
I
did well
love,
where there we go where did we go?
yeah, there you go. Because I wasn't really running away. I was imagining something better,
Yeah, yeah,
and yeah. And I love people's stories because you don't know someone until you know their story. It goes deeper than walking a mile in their shoes.
yeah.
If you don't know where they've been, you don't know why they are the way they are.
I
And
love
that
that.
fascinates me.
So, for those of you who don't know me, I couldn't think of a better segue than to invite you to read the Mosaic, which is sort of a fableized version of my story. So, I'm going to hire you to promote my book for me like that because what a great thing. Um, but you know, stories are, and I am a storyteller too, and I love that in the first few minutes of being together, we can share something so incredibly personal and so incredibly intimate as the ability to share the fact that we're both storytellers in a world that we live in. And what I found is our stories really create the life that we live. And I have a maxim that I don't think I created. It came to me, but I don't think I was the one that created it. It's that our thoughts become our words become our stories, and our stories become our life. And if we don't like any portion of those, we can change any portion of them and we can change everything.
Yes.
Do you are you with me on that? Is that what you?
The most important story is the one you believe. People say that you're the sum of the five people that you listen to, or the five people that you hang around with. I
Uh,
don't buy that. I believe that you're the sum of the five people you listen to, and the most important story is the one you believe. Please make sure it's true.
wow.
Don't get caught up in somebody's dialogue, somebody's negative talk towards you, somebody's defeating attitude, somebody who doesn't see you. See, I didn't feel like everybody else. I didn't feel seen, heard, and understood as a child.
Yeah.
So my whole life, I was just hello, hello, hello. And that was part of the imagination. I wanted to show somebody who I was, and then the stories came and the poems came and the poems literally wrote me because I had to get whatever feelings I had inside out.
Yeah.
And they literally wrote me. And it was like my therapy. But that's it. It's the most important story is the one you believe. And once it's out and you feel seen, heard, and understood, you can go back, reread, remember what happened, remember the pieces. What was true? What was it that you thought? Because stories are living, breathing beings.
Yeah.
There's the facts, what you think happened. There's what other people think happened, which is, all the conspiracy theories or whatever. But it's people's perspectives. Then there's the story that you made up about what happened. Was it a tragedy? Was it a lesson? Was it a blessing? Was it a curse? But the most important thing is how you frame the story,
Hmm.
because how you frame it is how you believe it, and that's how you live your life. Do you live it as a failure, a success? And that's what you beautifully portrayed in your book.
Thank you so much. That's so kind of you. Tell me what that means, how you frame your story, because I'm sure there's some people listening that aren't quite sure what that means.
It's what you think happened to you. Are you going to be a victim, or are you going to be the hero of your story? And bad things happen to good people
Yeah.
all the time. It's called life. Life is messy, and we're people, and we're emotional, and emotions are so deliciously, deliriously messy. And that's good and that's bad. Trust me.
Yes.
I think there's the reason why God made wine. It kind of helps cope. Um, all good things in moderation, but there's it's the way that you see yourself, and don't get caught up in somebody else's story. Don't let their opinion of you, or the weight of their circumstance and how they view life.
Yeah.
Don't adopt it.
Yeah.
Consider it, but if like a piece of clothing, if it doesn't fit, don't wear it.
I love that. I love that.
Understand.
Um, so what I sort of hear you saying, and I'm lobbing this over the net to tell me if this is what you actually are saying. I mean, I think you're pretty clear, but in my language, I would always say our stories are one thing, but the meaning we give to our stories is another.
Yes, that's the framing is the meaning.
That's so the framing is the
Yes,
meaning. Okay, that's what I thought you were saying
yes.
because they tell. There's a beautiful a beautiful book called Man's Search for Meaning by a man by the name of Viktor Frankl, who was in the Nazi Holocaust, and he was in the war, those camps. And he came out of those camps and said, if you ever want to know the most beautiful experience you could ever experience, it would be to be in a Holocaust camp and see what life is like. And people said to him, how in the world could you say such a thing? It's, that's just not even possible. He said, don't get me wrong, there weren't tragedies. I saw all the tragedies, but who I became through those tragedies was absolutely the most beautiful thing I could ever have, that could ever happen, because I saw I wasn't the things that was happening to me. I was the one experiencing the things that were happening to me, and I could paint that experience however I wanted. So
Yeah.
I think that's sort of what you're saying. Is that right?
And some of the best people are who they are and how they are from horrific experiences, because my belief is you either fall victim to it or you rise above it.
Beautiful.
That's,
So simple. So for those of you who are listening,
but it's not easy.
yeah, simple doesn't mean easy, but simple is simple. It's a
Yes.
simple choice.
Yes.
And for those of you who are listening, take a moment right now and pause. The stories that are happening in your life, what meaning are you giving them? How are you framing them? Are they making you become a victim, or are they making you become a hero? Or are you just rising up above it? Or are they making you become yourself? What stories are you telling yourself about yourself?
Hmm.
I remember for a long period of time, um, my parents passed away 2 years apart on the same day. And it was July 4th. So my dad passed away when I was 13 on July 4th. And my mom, on the summer of the year in between that year and the year she passed, took me on a trip with her to New York to see friends of hers. And we were in Philadelphia, so it wasn't that big of a trip, but it was a big trip for a 13-year-old kid. And because the parents wanted to spend time together, they said to me, they bought me a ticket to see the show Hair, which was like I thought I died and went to heaven. You know, it was the '70s, and it was Hair, I said, well, how am I going to get there? They said, well, it's only about a mile down the road here, so just walk down Broadway and go, and you'll see it. And I'm walking as a 14-year-old kid, free on my own through the streets of New York, going to see the show Hair, and I fell in love with it. I was intoxicated by it. And people always used to say to me, are you from New York? And I was so tired of saying to them, no, I'm not, no, I'm not, that I made up a little story. And I said to them, for a very short period of time, my mother wanted to be close to these friends that we went to visit. And we moved to Soho when Soho was Soho, and it was so many hoes that you can't even imagine. And there were all these needles and crack needles on the ground. And I would tell that story probably for 5 years. Tell me there wasn't one stitch of truth in that story. But I said it so much over and over and over again that I actually started to believe that we actually did that, until one time I was saying it to somebody. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. I don't know. I've sort of told my story this so many times to myself that I actually believe it. But we never moved to Soho. We never were in Soho. We never had a house in Soho. We never were with hoes and there were never crack needles where I was going away. And none of it was real.
Yeah.
But there's so many stories that are less obvious than that we tell ourselves. Take a look at the stories you're telling yourself and ask yourself, are they real? Tell me how you tell stories. Tell me what you do when you sit down with somebody and look at their story. I'm
Oh,
assuming that's the work you do, correct?
yeah. I tell stories for a living. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I ask questions. It's like you and your book. You ask questions. You have a conversation. You every the best conversations begin by listening, and the best stories are started by detours. You said that you used to tell people, about living in Broadway.
Yeah.
Well, being born and raised in Las Vegas, even when I would go to conferences, professional people, they'd be like, "You're from Las Vegas? What hotel do you live in?" And look, we don't go on the Strip.
All right.
My grandpa had an air conditioning and sheet metal company, and so he helped build all the, for Howard Hughes and blah blah blah. But and McCarran Airport, whatever. But you don't go on the Strip. It's very rare
Right.
because that's every place has its tourist place, and ours is a really long road. Everybody's like, "What hotel do you live in?" And I just got tired of explaining. I just live in a town. I went to school in a school.
Right. Right.
So, you know, like 20 years ago when I was still in corporate America, I'd be like, "I live in the penthouse at Caesars." Mark Antony comes and, tucks me in every night. And there's just, and I said it with a straight face,
Right.
and they believed it. And you know what? They were happy, and let them believe it.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that didn't hurt anyone. That's what they wanted to believe.
Yeah.
And so I kept their story alive. But I listened to their stories, and I listened to the why and what's not being said.
Yeah.
What, what so many, I believe a basic human need is to be seen, heard, and understood. So sometimes it's not what they say, but what they're not saying is
Yeah.
what they're asking for.
Yeah. So let's park for a minute and just What makes you happy?
Ah, what makes me happy? Music, art, beauty, those kinds of things just fill my soul. Um, Stories. I love stories. I talk in stories. I've talked in stories. Every time people ask me about so and so, I tell the story about my grandpa or my dad, the PGA teaching pro, and he caddied for Meyer Lansky, and there were everybody knew mobsters, and everything's a story because
Yeah,
that's what people remember.
yeah,
That's what they remember, and we all want to be seen, heard, and understood. And stories are repeatable and
yeah.
relatable, and people love to hear them, and they love to tell them, and
Yeah.
that puts them at ease to tell their stories. And I love that. I love being like a story catcher.
When I finished the Mosaic and I decided I was going to go out on the road and listen to people who nobody listens to, and it
Yeah.
ended up not happening because of COVID. But now I'm doing the same thing, now. I was on a podcast and someone said to me, "Did you feel listened to as a kid?"
Huh.
Because I noticed you're going out to listen to people. And I said, "No, the truth of the matter is, I don't think I felt listened to." And
Yes.
so I have a huge desire to serve that need in other people.
Yes.
What happened for you as a kid that made telling stories so important to you?
Well, as I said, and it's common, like you said, for you, and you don't feel seen, heard, and understood. I was the third child. I was a surprise. So, it's like we don't have time to do this. We don't have time to, and kids just they naturally internalize it. So it was all my fault. Everything was my fault until you realize that it's not.
Yeah.
And I mean that it's just a normal thing, but you don't feel seen, heard, and understood. And so that's why I would tell stories, and I would make up that there were, fantastical places and beings, and you know, and so I know how important it is. And I think that might possibly be why I tell stories for a living, you know?
Do you tell stories so that you can be remembered? Because you
Mm,
said something about the fact that people remember stories.
oh, they remember stories, yeah, but I do public relations. So I help the companies and the people of the companies be remembered.
Right.
Yeah,
But
it's
you
not.
still, what you said, I think you said, tell me, and I'm lobbing it back, lob it back. I find it so interesting that the thing that makes us, that gives us our passion is something we lacked growing up. And so when you said you were the third one, you didn't feel seen, heard, and understood, or whatever those three things were. I think everybody wants to be loved and accepted, listened to and heard, and acknowledged and validated. So very close to what you're saying.
Exactly.
I'm wondering, was there something that happened as a kid because you didn't feel seen, heard, that you realized that if you told stories, people might remember you, people might see you, people might hear you, and then they would hire you to tell stories for them? I mean, I'm reaching. It might not be anything, but is there
I don't,
anything that goes with that?
you know, it was in elementary school that my storytelling career truly began. Um, as I said, I'm the baby of three, and siblings. Siblings. Um, my sister had me read short ghost stories,
Oh,
Boris Karloff ghost stories. And my imagination is so vivid that the stories became real in my mind. It was like a movie I watched, right? And because of that, I would have these horrible nightmares. And I got tired of, well, imagination. There's two sides to everything.
yeah, yeah,
Everything has its good and it's not good. So I would have nightmares, and I got so tired of the nightmares one night that I got up in the middle of the night and I walked down the dark hallway into the living room, and I sat down. And I thought, if I can get the story out of my head, I can get some rest. And I had never been to camp. I'd never told ghost stories around a campfire, but I knew it was a thing.
right.
So I sat down and I proceeded to tell the story. Now, I was in elementary school. I have no idea why. but I changed the ending so I didn't die. And that began my storytelling career because I realized that even if somebody else wrote me into a story like I wrote myself into that story,
Yeah.
I could change the ending.
Love it.
It, it's not done. And so I originally started writing ghost stories so I wouldn't be afraid because I can control that. And, that was the time that Halloween and all the really good, scary stories were first coming out.
Yeah.
And Alfred Hitchcock, that's why he was so good, was because he wouldn't show you what happened. He let you imagine whatever it was that scared you the most.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was genius back then. So that's where it began.
As you speak, and I hear certain things that I hear in my own life too, which is some of the stories that I made up were trying to help me to gain control over a random world that I had no control over. Do you think this is the first time I've ever thought this thought, so I'm interested to hear what you think. Do you think stories are a vehicle for us to have control?
I think it's a vehicle more than control, it's understanding. If we can understand something, like I said, it was ghost stories, because what I'm afraid of is the dark, not literally the dark,
Right.
but what you can't see. Even good, bad, or indifferent, when you know what something is, whether it's a diagnosis or a situation or whatever, when you know what's coming at you, you can plan how to respond. When you don't know what's coming at you, what's in the dark, that's when you're, because you have no way,
I like
no
that.
no plan to defend. And that's what it is to me. It's not that, I don't think it's control. Well, I mean, in a way it's control, it's managing, but it's not
Yeah.
a controlling thing.
Right.
It's a you know how
Well,
to manage it.
the meaning we give to control can make it either a good thing or a bad thing, right?
Right.
But for me, I know that I took situations where I was completely out of control and that I didn't understand it. So I love the component you're bringing to it of understanding. I didn't understand how my hero, my dad, could die randomly in a world. So I made up a story about how if I would have woken up 3 weeks earlier, 4 weeks earlier, and said goodbye to him before he left on his trip, he would not have died, which has no relevance to anything. They're not even close. But it allowed me to have control of a random world. It, I don't know that I understood the world any better, but it allowed me to have that I was the cause and this was the effect, rather than there being no cause and effect.
Right.
And we make those stories up all along. And so, whether it's because we need to understand, or we want to understand, or we want to control, it's just interesting to look at. And for the listeners that are listening, why do you tell stories? Like, what is it that you benefit? Where's the benefit that you get in the stories you tell? If you're a company and you're telling a story, is it to get people to buy your product?
It's to buy into you.
Is it to buy into you?
Buy
Right?
into you because it's who we want to be, just like being friends with. We choose people and companies and employees and friends by shared values.
Love it. Love it. I want to ask you about that later if we have a chance, but let's change into a lightning round if we can. Okay?
Okay.
Are you a dog or a cat person?
No pets. Didn't have them growing up.
No pets. So neither one. You don't relate to one more than the
I
other?
mean, I don't not like them, but I didn't have them, so I don't want them.
Got you. All right. Do you drink coffee or tea?
Tea during the day, coffee and Bailey's on Sundays.
Wow. Okay. I like that. I thought you were going to say for a minute coffee at night, and you were going to really blow my mind.
Yeah.
Uh,
Mainly water with lemon, but yeah,
gotcha. Are you a person that do you consider yourself to be in the box or someone who's out of the box?
out of the box.
Fabulous. I know both of these are important, but I'd like to ask you to, to choose one that's most important for you right now. Do you think it's important for you to have a platform where you can speak your voice and your voice can be heard? Or is it more important for you right now to create a platform for other people to be heard in the voice? for other people's voices to be heard.
Wow. To pick one, I think that they both build on each other.
Yeah.
Um, uh, wow. And I don't want this to sound selfish, but I think my platform, because that gives people permission.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think
Why?
that's what they need
Why did you think it might sound selfish?
because I put the spotlight on other people.
Right.
I don't put the spotlight on me.
Right.
It's not about me. It's about other people. And but when I am up there, when I've spoken before, I've whatever. And people are just like, ah, when I tell them their bio, and it's a highlight reel of your life, and I start asking all these crazy questions and the serendipitous collisions of people, places, and passions, like your story takes you through these adventures to find things out.
Yeah.
That's the connecting point. It's the human experience. It's not a resume. Nobody cares about your GPA.
Totally. So knowing that, not let me just, and I just want to understand. It's not like I'm pressing you. I just
Yeah.
really want to understand. Knowing the power of what you bring when you say your story and speak your voice, why would you feel selfish saying that?
Because I've been told, not by growing up, I was told that I was selfish and I was trying to make things about me. But when I'm, like I said, in front of the audience, it's freeing for them
Yeah.
because everybody needs, and they need the permission and they need to know how. Because not everybody is a storyteller, not everybody can write. Everybody has certain things. And by hearing someone's story, it's okay for their story to come out.
I want the listener to pause right now. Hit pause and come back. Answer that question for yourself. Because in a world where people's voices don't feel heard, sometimes it's not because nobody wants to listen. Sometimes it's because we may feel selfish saying our story, or we may have been told before that our story isn't important. Other people's stories are important. I mean, my whole work is to listen to people. So and through listening to people, that's become my story. Okay. So I understand this place where we want to be able to listen to others. But if you don't feel heard, that's something that so many people in the world suffer from. And it doesn't matter if you have a lot of money or no money. It doesn't matter if you're black or white or yellow or red. It doesn't matter what border you live behind, what language you speak, what religion you become. I sat with the richest people in the world at, at their dining room tables, in their living rooms. I've gotten to know their parents and their kids. I've sat with some of the best self help teachers and spiritual leaders in the world in their living rooms, at their tables, and met the people that they have value in. And I've sat on street corners with the poorest of the poor. And every single one of them told me the same three things. They want to be loved and accepted. They want to be listened to and heard. They want to be acknowledged and validated. Not one of them asked me to if I would believe like they believe. Never
Yeah.
did they care. They didn't care about that.
Mm-mm.
So ask yourself some questions that make your palms sweat. Question some of the belief systems that you have, that you've been taught. Am I really selfish in my story? Is that something that was really um, not something that will benefit the world and benefit me? What would happen if I said my story?
Yeah.
Let's jump back in, Lightning. Do you feel like you fit into the world, or do you feel like you're different?
Um, Different. I've thought about writing an autobiography, and it would be from the outside in.
Huh? Tell me what that
It's like
means.
the observer.
Uh-huh. I love that.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's so interesting because I think we're saying the same thing in different words. Because my what I talk to people about is coming from the inside out. and like getting to know yourself on the inside, and then you can be happy with anything that happens. But being the observer of watching the way you move through the world is a sort of a similar type thing, or is it?
No, it's me knowing me and knowing that, feeling that I don't fit in. I mean, I'm very personable and,
Right.
you
Totally.
know, make friends and talk to anybody, just, you know, like you said, from up to down and everything in between. But I don't fit. And it's not that I'm not liked or what, but I just have, I've always had a different perspective. I've always seen things backwards, like the big picture on down,
Yeah.
you know, and I'll see things like trends or things before they happen. And I'm just like, this makes no sense,
Yeah.
you know? So it's like I belong, but I don't. It's like being of the world, but not in it.
Yeah. Love that.
Yeah. So it's
It's
not like,
so,
yeah, I don't belong.
it's so interesting because when I ask this question, and I've asked it now almost 50 times to people on this show, I would guess there's maybe two or three people out of those 50 who have said they fit in.
Yeah.
Everybody else has said they're different. One woman said it really, and one of the women that said she fit in was beautiful. She said, "Oh, I fit in because it's a world full of misfits, of people who don't fit in." And I thought, well, beautiful! How beautiful is that, right?
It's a mosaic.
It's the mosaic. But one of the beautiful things to me to wonder then is if all of us feel, if so many of us feel different, why are we pushed so hard to try and fit in? And why do we push others to try and fit in? Because even some of us who don't fit in try and push others into trying to fit in. I'm not saying that's you or me, but we see a world where everybody's saying, but you want to fit in. You got to be in this silo. You got to believe like this.
No, be comfortable in your skin. Know your story, own it, be proud of it. It fits you and it fits in the motley crew, the mismatch, the mosaic, whatever you want to call it. Yes, the island of unfit toys or what. I love that
Yes, beautiful.
because there is nothing wrong.
Yeah,
And it's each individual. It takes, I mean, the United States is a melting pot.
used to be. I'm
Well,
not sure if we are anymore, but we still are. I think
yeah,
we are. I think we are.
yeah.
And I think that the beauty of that is that when we melt, we don't lose ourselves. We
No.
actually just blend together.
You add a spice, you add a color, you add a flavor, and that's the beauty.
Yeah, yeah,
That's the beauty.
yeah.
It expands, it doesn't contract,
I
and
love
it
your
doesn't
answers.
separate. It doesn't separate.
Head or heart, where do you feel you live from?
It's where I get in trouble is when I separate them.
Tell me about that.
What I try to think too much instead of feel because I've always, in my heart, I've always known. And when I go against it, it bites me.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, beautiful.
So
So would that mean where would you say you operate from then? Head or heart?
when I operate well, I operate from my heart. When I get in my way, I operate from my head. See, I'm Aquarius Cap rising.
Yeah,
So I used to think I was like bipolar, schizophrenic, whatever.
right,
But I
right.
can be like, la, 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 okay, get it done.
Yeah,
You know, so I literally, I go back and forth. But
love it.
when I let my heart lead and knowing the story behind that, I can understand and I can go, okay, shut it off, tune it in.
Love it.
Yeah.
Would you say you're a leader or a follower?
Yes. It depends.
Share with me.
Um, well, I like to follow people that I like what they're doing, what they're saying, kind of in a mentor way, kind of in a like-minded way, kind of in a expand what I think or what I know way.
Yeah,
But then I like to, I don't necessarily like calling it leading, but I like to enlighten by expanding their thoughts about themselves and well what about this and what about that and just literally think outside that little box in your head and the cubicle and the TV and the computer and outside, literally. And like you do, is you listen to people and it expands
Hmm.
your awareness.
Hmm.
And you're neither leading nor following.
Yeah,
And
I
so
love that.
that's why I'm kind of like,
Yeah, if someone would ask me which one of those I am, I would say I'm the space between the leader and the follower.
you're yeah, you're in between the lines.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
I'm in
that
between the lines of their story, helping them write it.
I love that. Do you think people are more similar than they are different, or more different than they are similar?
We're more alike than different. We are all part of this human race. I don't care what continent. I don't care what religion. We all want the same thing. Where we're different is by the stories that we believe, how we grew up, the religions, the ideologies, whatever. They're different stories.
Pause
And
for 1 minute. I want you to replay what you just said. That is such a powerful statement. And it's going to be hard for some people who have made the stories around the religion that they follow, or the color of the skin, or the belief system of what one color should be over another. But what makes us different is the stories we believe, the stories we've been told that we believe. It's such a powerful statement. I'm sorry, go continue.
because I believe the basis of all the ancient religions are the same. It's the golden rule. It's don't hurt people, be kind, give back, help your fellow man, woman, child.
Yeah,
And but because we're so different, like you might like a different flavor of ice cream that I like. Doesn't make either one of us wrong. It
yeah,
makes it different. So there's all these stories around the different religions to get people in to buy into the story. Now, it's gotten distorted with dogma, and I'm not anti-religion or anything like that. I'm not even going to go there. But it's, and I hope that they don't take this wrong,
it's
but
okay.
that's why there's the different ones because it's going to take different things for people to buy into. Like my friends love sushi, I don't, but I love seafood.
Right.
I like Rocky Road ice cream. They like strawberry, and it's just it's not. It's all good.
Yeah, yeah,
It's just different, and that's the thing. We're more alike, and we believe, and we all want the same. We want our children to grow up safe, or my nieces and nephews, and just. But it's a human experience.
totally. Why do you think, with everything you say and everything you believe in this story, why do you think that we've latched on to and given such meaning to the stories that paint stories of us being different, the stories that paint stories of us needing to fit in when most of us don't feel like we do fit in, the stories that talk about how one is good and one is bad when we know inherently that that isn't true?
Because we're bombarded with stories that tell us unless you have this, unless you have that, and people around us are projecting their lacks on us.
I love
and
it.
and because we want to, I've been through some stuff, so I've figured it out.
Yeah,
It ain't easy. It was reflecting on the poems that wrote me, and I was able to remember them and rewrite the story behind them.
yeah,
um but it's because we want to be loved. It's Maslow's basic hierarchy of needs. It's shelter, love. Babies die if they don't feel loved.
yeah,
They
yeah.
literally leave if they don't feel loved.
There's so much to unpack in what you're saying. And one of the things that I didn't say when I first heard you say it was, instead of us being the collection of the five people we most come close or hang out with, I
Mhm.
would love to invite the possibility that we're the collection of the five stories that we most believe.
Yes.
And that but those beliefs can change, those
Yes.
stories can change, those things can change. Um, I could talk to you for a long time because I love the way your mind thinks. I love the stories you tell. Do you believe the world is telling us a story? Do you believe our business is telling us a story?
Yeah.
Do you believe our bodies are telling us stories?
Yeah.
What do
We
you
just
be-
don't always tune in.
what do you believe the world is trying to say to us right now?
Right now, get back in balance.
Well,
Get back in balance. The balances of
get
power.
back in balance, you're saying.
Get get back in
Okay.
balance.
I thought you were saying give back in balance, and I thought
No,
both of those, but get back in balance.
no,
Okay.
get back in balance because from from nature to balances of power everywhere in organizations, in industries, in government. And I'm talking. This is not a bipartisan thing.
Right. Right.
It has
This is
it.
not a partisan thing, you mean?
Oh, it's not. It's not a partisan thing. I'm sorry. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's some keeps coming up on my screen. Can you see it?
No, you're
Okay,
fine.
I'll just let it sit there. Um, Things got out of balance,
Yeah.
and we have an opportunity, if we so choose,
Yeah.
to get it back in balance. And some people are balancing it, getting things back in balance better than others. We're having an opportunity to see who's really important, who've been the heroes, the frontline workers,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, the doctors. You know, who are we choosing to listen to? And I'm trying to make this so not
Right. No, totally. It's a,
so
but
not pleasant. Who are we listening to? Who do we value?
yeah.
I mean, teachers. Okay, that's a universal given.
Yeah.
I don't care how good of a parent you are. Not everybody can teach.
Yeah. 100%. 100%.
And they're learning it. And so that's what I think the balances of power in all areas.
In everything. So let me ask you about balance, because in a normal world we think about balance as being a sort of a 50-50, where there's the same amount here as there is here, but sometimes things balance like this. Sometimes it's just, and what balance is to me is that moment where there is no resistance, there's no tension, there's no fight. We're just left on its own. It
Mhm.
it's free of resistance. And so it doesn't matter if the scale is like this or like this or like this or like this. When we find that place of balance, there's peace.
It's a coming home.
Fabulous. Okay. What do you think the world is trying to say to you personally right now?
Hmm. That I need to tell my truth more, that I need to be out there t- putting it out there more than helping other people do it right now.
How's that feel to you? That feels like I mean, even as you say it, you're normally flow pretty, but there is like a little bit of tension there
It's
in
like,
your body.
okay. And I love being, well, there is not stages now, it's virtual, but I love that,
Yeah.
um, because you
Do
can
you,
see the audience get it.
totally.
And I love that.
Do you think the fact that you weren't seen as a kid as much, when you said you were the middle kid,
The baby.
the
I was
baby,
surprised. Yeah.
do you think that because you weren't seen there, it's harder for you to want to be seen now?
It's sometimes it's harder and sometimes it's easier because I get up on the stage and I'm like, I wasn't heard as a child, so I love this. Thank you for being my captive audience.
Right.
And they're just like, yeah,
I love that.
because at some point everybody feels that.
Yep.
And that's just another connecting point because it's a human experience. And so yeah, I get nervous before I get up on stage. I think that is as long as
Everybody does.
as long as you care, you're going to get nervous. It's not like a stage fright thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah.
I think that nervousness is good. My wife passed away of cancer many years ago, and she had an inoperable tumor on her spine. And
Mm.
there was only one doctor that would do the surgery, and he was in Dallas. And we went to see him, and he treated us like really not very well. He looked down on us, and I called him out on it. I went out after him, and I said, "What right do you have to treat my wife who's dying of cancer like that? You may be a big important person, but I don't give you the space that you occupy. You're an insecure little frightened man."
Yeah.
And to his credit, he said, "I'm so sorry. I'm so happy you called me out. But I look at a beautiful woman like that and a young woman who's about to lose her life, and I can't understand why."
Somebody would do that.
And I said to him, "Do you get scared when you do these things?" And he said, "If I don't I do the surgeries that no one else will do." He said, "If I walk into the room and I don't feel a bead of sweat dripping down my back, I cancel the surgery because I need to know that I need to have that reverence for the act that I'm about to perform." I don't think it's that different speaking on a stage.
No, it's the same thing.
I think it's that same place that you have the responsibility of the people's ears that you're speaking to.
Because it's not about me.
So now, built up with that beautiful segue into, if you had 1 minute to tell the world something, what is it you would like to say from that stage, from this stage, from the place that you're sitting in your heart? What's the one thing you would like to tell the world?
Everyone in the world has a story that somebody needs to hear for insight, inspiration, and to know they're not alone. It doesn't have to be broadcast in the media. It can be as simple as what you did in a one-on-one conversation. There were things that people told me that they didn't even realize were profound, that saved my life, that got me out of an abusive relationship when I got married at 18, divorced at 20, blah, blah, blah. Everybody's been through something. But little things that people said, there's times when your heart takes a picture
Yeah,
only to be developed when you're ready to see it.
love it,
But but it will come.
love it. If people are as intoxicated with you as I am, how will they be able to get in touch with you?
Oh my gosh. Well, they can find me on my website.
And that website is,
Yes, it's one, the number one, blue cube, BLUECUBE.com.
and you'll send me that link, and
Yes,
please send me social media links as
yes,
well.
I will. Yeah. Yeah.
Um,
Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, Instagram. It's my name.
and we'll have all those right here, so you don't have to worry about it or remember it right now. Just look in the show notes when the talk
Thank
comes out. I want to thank you for the beauty of who you are and for taking the time to be with me and the people who listen to me to this show today. I want to thank you for really coming out and just being here with us. You showed up beautifully. You showed up truthfully. You showed up vulnerably. You showed up real. And for me to come into this magic room that I call a Zoom room and be able to have people come to meet with me with such authenticity and real, with no pause, no hesitation, no, because the world doesn't believe that happens. We grew up saying, "Don't talk to strangers."
Yeah.
We grew up saying, you can't, don't say your stories unless you feel safe. But here you are with an imperfect stranger like myself, and just opened up and shared with us who you are and how beautiful that is. For those of you who listen to this show and continue to listen, I can't thank you enough. Share these stories with people. Let these people that we're hearing be heard by more people than just you and me. And who knows, maybe you'll hear a story from a stranger that will make you want to get to know that stranger more. Maybe you'll hear a story from a stranger and say, "I would like her to help me tell my story." Maybe you'll contact Tami and get her help in bringing out the story that is waiting to come in you. As Wayne Dyer said, don't let your music die within you. Get your music out. Again, Tami, thank you. Is there any last thing you want to say before we go off?
Just thank you. Thank you for allowing me to be here and for sharing my story. It's truly an honor. I just finished your book last night.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Wow. Just wow.
Thank you. I'm dying to know what you think. So
Wow. I wrote a little review, so it should be up there.
thank you so, so much. I so appreciate that. I really do. Stranger things have happened, my friends, than bumping into a stranger that you didn't even know 10 minutes before existed. and having them become a friend, working together with your friends to create a world that is a better world than the one we live in, not because it has to be better, just because it can be.
One me. Yes.
Take advantage of these conversations, meet the people, contact them. All of their information is in the story. Contact them, contact Tami. Open up a dialogue. It isn't that hard. Don't be strangers, be friends. Thank you again until next episode. God bless you all. Thank you, Tami. Thank you, everyone who listens.
Thank you.